take off the little producer one right there. Yeah.
What was he doing up there?
I don't know. He might make an appearance. I'm like, why is that there? I don't know why that's there.
Because I'm pushing buttons on my iPad. We're back.
We're back. This is what happens when you're on a break for a long period of time.
We forget how the buttons work.
Exactly. So, Teresa here, and of course, my brother from another mother, Royce.
Oh my gosh.
Good to see you again.
It's good to see you too. Oh my gosh. And we're sitting here like preparing for today's show. And both of our guests, Notorian, are one of our original, beginnings of this show.
Exactly.
So just a big shout out to Torian too. Miss you, my friend.
Yes.
Love to talk to you soon.
Love to you.
And we will carry on. We move forward.
We will do him proud. We will do him proud.
It's true.
So it's been a while. So how you been?
Yeah. I'm taking 2 classes this semester and that's on. I didn't stop doing anything else. So that was smart.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I mean, one of them may have to go. That's I don't know.
That's the way you're looking at it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
How about you?
We got to say welcome back from Peter.
There's Peter.
Yep. Hello. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, I feel like I should have gone back to school, but instead I just brought, more kids into my house because I guess I just was bored. But it was a good reason. My friend Joe, he got sole custody of his kids, so they are here. It's like I forgot how taking care of young children was. Wow, I even talked about the fact, and I'm sorry, anybody who's a parent knows this, and I find it funny that Ashton Kutcher and Mia Kulish got so much flack that they mentioned about bathing their kids, and I'm like, if you're a parent, there are times you've gone 3 days without taking a shower, so don't get on them. Literally, That's where I was at last week. I was just like, what's today? I haven't showered in 3 days. Let me go ahead and take care of that. Yeah. And this morning was spent at 1:45 changing the diaper of one of them that had major diarrhea and throwing up all over the living room. So this is now the new part of my life.
I mean, if it's comforting at all, they say we become better parents as we get older.
I hope so. I feel like I had guinea pigs with my 3, and now I'm helping out with these 3. I feel like I can't screw it up as much as I did my own. Although I do feel like I've done well. And
You've done great. I think really what happens is we just run out of fucks to give.
Exactly.
It's like, nope, sorry. Yeah, you're eating rocks. It ain't gonna kill you.
It was nice it was nice seeing the house clean for a while before they I've just kind of given up on that dream. So, but yeah, other than that, I'm happy to see the outcome as it is and happy to help any way that I can. And we got Nina. Hi, girl. Hi, Nina. Hi to you too, and it's nice to see you too. Thank you for tuning in. Oh, and Mary is here. Hi, Mary.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know which part she's affirming, but there was a lot to affirm.
I don't know if that's yes to be here or yes, we're gonna have a conversation today. So yeah, we're gonna see how that one goes. We're gonna see how this goes. But before we dive any further,
I have a line.
We have to give our
I'm supposed to say things, aren't I?
No, you say things. Part. Yes, so I'll say things.
That's all right. We did the banters.
Yes, we did the banter. So before we dive into our gratitude and the topic for this week, welcome back, everyone.
Chaos and bullshit. We're here.
Exactly. Just a reminder, just like fairies, applause and recognition help us live. So please take this moment to like our page, subscribe, and of course hit the notification bell so you know about updates.
There it is. And that's on YouTube. For those who like me don't know any of the technologies.
Yes, please, like our YouTube page. We were excited that we hit 100 subscribers, but we want to keep growing that. So, yes, please tell your family, tell your friends, tell your husbands, tell your wives. We're coming for you all.
All of them.
All of them.
And if you have 4 Gmail accounts, you better be signed up on all 4. That's all I got to say.
Exactly. I agree.
Speaking
I agree. Yep. So we are going to start with our gratitude, which being that we have been gone for so long, we should have a lot of gratitude. Why you look like that, Royce?
I'm guessing I'm going first. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yes.
Well, okay. First off, I'm going to show you. Teresa is one of these amazing human beings who sends me like, here's the entire show breakdown. Now, like, it ain't going to go this way. We all know that. But with it all being there, it's easier to just kind of keep track of where we're jumping in and out of. So it's not a script. It's just kind of an outline to remind Royce, stop fucking babbling. But so I'm really grateful for that, Teresa. And I had my first class. Semester started last week, but I was in Washington, D.C. visiting Howard University to look at PhD programs. And so I missed my first week in class, but then we got back. I got into class today, and it felt good, and it was amazing to be there. And all the anxiety that happens ahead of time, because it's a different program. I'm looking at communications, so I'm auditing a communications class to kind of see, to get my, it's a whole new field for me. So I got to get my shit together. But I was just really grateful for that class. And what a wonderful thing to look around the room and hear like 5 different amazing accents, to be in a class where I'm the only cisgender dude. Like, I just love being in spaces that constantly just wrestle me from directions that I don't expect. It's so I'm grateful, hugely grateful for all that. It's your turn.
My turn is that I finally we filmed 2 episodes now of New Mexico Entertainment Television.
Yeah.
So
at a studio.
At a studio. And I mean, that's one of the reasons like I'm getting down this whole outline script thing, because I have to do that with the other show. But I mean, it was something that I strive to do. I wanted to do it for a long time, and it's finally happened. Steph Darnell is my co-host, and he and Em, my best friend, who, if you watch the show, she's been on before, have mentioned that, they've been there from the beginning. And so to, now have it transfer over to this medium, I'm really excited. But I also realize my limitations right now as I'm learning to work in a studio with, oh gosh, that was hard the first time. But our goal is that we'll be doing long time ago is we'll be doing it for a weekly show. And I'm kind of like, I feel like I got that down here, but in a studio, we're gonna need some work. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the patient staff over at Studio 519, and grateful that we have this opportunity to do it. And if you guys ever want to see it, please, check it out. It's on Public Access Channel 27, or you can visit studio519abq.com, and we're on every Friday at 6:30.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited. Okay, we got more love. We got more love to get. So Mary wants to say, hey, love all of it. So she's there for all of it.
All of it.
All of it. And of course, Neela's like, I'm now tuned in on YouTube. Yay. Oh, thank you, Mary, because she's a pro. And I hope professional and defense.
We're still live on Facebook? I thought we were cutting Facebook.
We're still live. So I only did it because it is our premiere episode.
Oh, okay.
So be grateful that I did it for today.
No, that's great. That's great. I'm just like by way of information, letting people know.
Yes, exactly. So we did it for today. It's a special day. It's our first day back. So I thought, you know what, y'all, I'll put it on Facebook too. So you're welcome.
I was afraid we were just going to keep procrastinating. I'm scared that we are going to just avoid CRT and just use the initials of it, so we never have to actually say it.
Oh my goodness, you kidding me? I am so looking forward to this topic after I heard about it the first time. Oh my goodness. No, we needed to do this. So This is a first video we're gonna put up to get ready for this segment. If it plays.
At the college level in Texas, and I'm teaching a freshman level introduction to history.
I'm sorry, and I love technical difficulties. That was the end of the video. So we're going to start that again. Just give me a moment. I love this stuff. Here it is here.
I want to shout out
to
there we go. College level in Texas, and I'm teaching a freshman level introduction to history class, an honors class. And just for fun today, I asked the students, I was like, list 10 white men from U.S. history. And immediately they got 10. They were like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. They named 10. Name 10 women from U.S. history. And they were like Jackie Kennedy, Eleanor Roosevelt, Michelle Obama. I was like, all right, you got 3 presidents' wives. Name other women. And they were like Rosa Parks. And that was all they got. All right, name 10 non-white people who are from U.S. history. And they were like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Rosa Parks. And that was all that they had, was those 3. And this was mostly Hispanic students. So I was like, list 10 Hispanic people from U.S. history. And they were like, who was that guy that we beat at the Alamo? And I was like, Santa Anna. And they were like, yeah, him. And Pancho Villa. And those were the only 2 they had. And I was like, did you learn about those being good guys or those being bad guys? And they were like, those were the bad guys. And I was like, can you name any Hispanic people who were good guys? And they didn't have any. Can you name 10 people who were handicapped? And they had Stephen Hawking, and that was all that they had. They could have came up with Franklin Roosevelt. But I was like, can you name any white people who were bad guys? And they didn't have any white people who were bad guys. And in Texas right now, there's this idea that the teachers are teaching critical race theory. I don't even know what critical race theory is, but that's the accusation. And the Texas government is trying to crack down on that at the K through 12 level, trying to limit our teaching of race. But as it already stands, all my students are coming to me knowing is about white people being good guys, Hispanics being bad guys, and 3 non-white people, and that's about it. A few women who married people who were presidents, and that's like all that they're learning, and they want to limit that even more. In his book Pedagogy of the Oppressed, Paulo Freire, who was Brazilian, he wasn't even writing from America, he says that in most education systems, they teach the oppressors to be proud of who they are, and they teach the oppressed that they don't have value, that they shouldn't be proud. And I feel like that's what's happening in the education system already, and they're wanting to change it even more to be more in that direction. And it's disheartening, and I don't know how we fix this.
So I remember having a conversation with you. Gosh, it had to be 2 months ago when this seemed to really blow up.
Yeah.
That, and I even posted it on Facebook that I have not read up on CRT. I've not read anything on critical race theory. How it was explained to me, though, just seemed to make common sense. Not all history is taught in schools. It is very marginalized. It is very picked to, either, I'm not sure, make it that kids aren't traumatized by what the country has done, but it's a disservice.
No, it ain't.
It's a disservice to not do it, right? So
it's absolutely in service of white supremacy. It's in service of patriarchy. It is in service of propping up power structures. That is period. That's why after Goldwater, the first thing the Republicans did was took over the Board of Education in the state of Texas, because they knew if they controlled the Board of Education in the state of Texas, a state that has more public schools than any other state in the union, even though it doesn't have the most population because it has the land mass in it with more schools. So therefore they order more textbooks. So they could dictate what goes in those textbooks. And that's how we go from the Civil War being about slavery to the Civil War being about states' rights. Like, it's that simple transition. And that's an example of, what is critical race theory? It's just simply asking the question, what other narratives are there? What other experiences of this were there? That's, in a sense, I don't know, I'm sure our guests will have some more ideas about it, but that's, it's not a thing that you teach. It's a perspective that we use to read these things and to say maybe there's a problem. It's that question. I've seen this one running around. I think I saw it first on TikTok. Somebody saying, if your great grandfather hated people in wheelchairs and he built this amazing bed and breakfast, right? He built this beautiful bed and breakfast and made it in such a way that there's absolutely no way that a person in a wheelchair can function in there at all. They can't be a guest. They couldn't, fix breakfast there. They couldn't do anything. Okay. And you inherited this eventually, right? This beautiful old, like just historic. It's got a plaque out front, Airbnb, just beautiful. I'm picturing Victorian, right? If you inherit this thing and you don't unfuck that thing from the fact that it was created to be hostile to people in wheelchairs, then you are now part of the fucking problem, right? Now, that lens that we're looking at that topic through is one that is critical. It's saying we have to consider other perspectives, right? My grandfather may have been a racist fuck. I don't need to be, but that means I have to relearn some things. It means I have to retool a whole bunch of stuff. And it may mean that I have to tear down some shit in that blessed old house, right? Like that's what we're looking at here. I love that little metaphor. 'Cause it just, it nails so much about that. We got a bunch of we got to say hi to some folks here before we bring on our guests.
Our guests. Yes.
Yeah.
I got to go back to they were already asking, where's Susan?
Yep.
Here.
Yes, Sophia. She's coming.
She's coming.
As soon as we can shut Royce up, it'll be on.
Kelly. Kelly's here. I'm late for you. Yes, we are back. We're excited too. And now Mary's moving to YouTube. Yay! Yep. Yes, everybody. YouTube. That's the place to be.
Do that YouTube.
And we got a hi.
Sarah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So it's like I know those initials.
She's logged into her work account today, apparently.
And of course, Jason's here. Hello there.
Jason.
Aloha. So yes, that's her hellos. Royce, please introduce our guest.
I just did a whole bunch of talking. You want me? Okay.
I know, but hey, that was your rant. I let you go on your rant.
Okay.
I got you go.
I just want to note how that was phrased. Teresa allowed the rant. I just want to put that out there. Okay. I'm not arguing with it. I'm just noting it.
It was a common sense rant. I could have cut you off. Come on. Yeah. It was a common sense rant. I have a feeling this is going to happen for the whole show. So you know what? I'm all right with that.
All right. Well, we're going to put a quarter in our first guest who may need a little wake up. Our first guest is Vincent Gaddis. Dr. Gaddis is a professor, minister, and community activist whose objective is to help create the vision of the beloved community. And for the white ears out there, beloved community is a reference to MLK's notion that there is a way for us to be in relationship and to cherish our variety, our differences, as that which makes us better as a whole. Anyway, he is also a public speaker who regularly gives presentations on race and racism, the prison industrial complex, and questions the values in America. His current research is for a future book entitled Revolution in Values: Why America Must Embrace the Beloved Community, which I can't fucking wait to read. Let's get Dr. Gaddis out here.
Hello. He's still awake.
Yay!
Still here. Hey, good to go, baby.
Our second guest is Susan Cintra. Susan is a high school teacher, English teacher in Richmond, Kentucky. She's a mother of three, all of them entering different phases of puberty, which is hilarious. And only those of you who have lived with that pain will understand what she's. Yes.
Why?
Okay. Most of her downtime is non-existent, so she rarely sleeps, but she spends her time fighting for her students, her teachers, and public education. So let's get Susan out here too.
Yay, Susan!
Hi,
I know.
Susan.
Sophia is my daughter, my 8-year-old, who's in the other room, and she's like, "Why are you not on yet?" So that's cracking me up. FIFA, chill out.
I love her. This is amazing.
Little did you know she had like 5,000 friends on YouTube are all, mom's going to be on. Mom's going to be on.
Just wait. They're going to start coming in.
Well, that's where you tell them, if you aren't bringing my headphones, honey.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I can tell long stories about headphones needed with that child. Yeah.
Oh, dear. Oh.
That's for another show. That's for another show.
All right.
But as we all heard Royce, how he has explained what CRT is to him, I think that's pretty much what a big part of the conversation is going to be tonight. Like I said, for me, it seemed like a common sense thing that, I mean, there's always that quote, if you don't know your past, you don't know your future, you got to know the history. And I feel like that really hasn't been done in this country when there's people in schools that have school books that are different in all different states, and not all the information is the same. So let's start with the question, what is CRT? Who wants to start?
Well, I can jump in. You're going to give the more like collegiate response there, but as a public education teacher, teaching in a high school, it's not something that we teach. It's not something we've ever taught. It is something that is a tool that is being used to politicize and drive a conversation for a lot of different outcomes. And we can dig into those outcomes in a minute, but it's not what it's a college level law school theory that's where it originated, and it was taken and weaponized, and that's where we are. Now you, Dr. Vincent, you give
not a whole lot to add to that, but yes, it did begin with people like Derek Bell and came out of critical legal theory. And the bottom line, and Roy said this very well, is that, what critical race theory does is just simply say, okay, race and racism is normative in this country.
Yes.
Right? And if that is so, and this is where Derek Bell started with, was, okay, so if that's true, then how do we understand the relationships between how race is constructed and acted out in policy and law specifically, and how that is lived in our cultural landscape? And then taking a look at the law and saying, this was the initial contribution he made to this whole issue of critical race theory, was this. Was Brown v. Board good for black people?
Oh.
Right? Because we all say, well, Brown versus Board, that integrated the schools, blah, 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 blah. But if you dig a little bit under it, and I'm going to give a longer perspective than, because Derek's dead now, but I'm going to prove that he was right. Because what he said was, along with people like Harold Cruz, Get Crisis of the Negro Intellectual, what he said was, hey, because we have integration, the cost of that is black teachers who were teaching black children are now out of jobs because we're sending black children to white schools with white teachers who don't know who we are and don't know our history and aren't going to teach it.
Y'all set this shit up. I love
it. Other than Susan. But what he said was that because we live in a system that is racially motivated, we live in a racist system, that even Brown v. Board was so opposed, even when it was ruled, that no one wanted to buy in. And if you look at public education now, what are we, 70 something years since Brown v. Board?
Yeah.
Public education has re-segregated.
Yes, because the goal was to have it segregated anyway, and it benefited those in power, and those in power can reinstitute it, it turns out.
Yes, and so this was the heart of Derek Bell's case, was, well, wait a minute, Why did Brown v. Board pass? Because elites and others recognized and we missed this so much in 1954, in the height of the Cold War, it was key that the United States show that we do have some semblance of an actual democratic society where people who are different actually matter. Brown v. Board. But in its working out, it has never served the function that those who fought for it, and I'm not besmirching Thurgood Marshall or anybody else in this who argued the case in front of the Supreme Court. I mean, yes, I get, okay, let's have equal education. Let's have equal access to education. But the critical race theorists ask the question, what did that decision really serve in the interest of Black people?
Right? And it, especially like to know what led up to that is so vital also, like to understand that it was, they had passed reform after reform and Supreme Court decision after Supreme Court decision saying equal funding. Yep. There was this whole notion of separate but equal for a time. All of these different models that were tried, and each and every fucking time, there were ways to imbalance stuff so the white schools got more stuff.
Exactly.
But exactly like that critique of, so what happened to all the Black teachers? Like, and then we look at our public school system today, and it's dominated by white people.
Yes.
By white women.
And yes, yeah.
Right? Because it opened the whole professional education, opened a whole economic sphere, so that white women who wanted to work didn't have to compete with their white husbands in industry. Go be a teacher. Yeah. Which is no slam on teachers. I'm one of them. Okay.
Yeah.
But
it was all part of the, when people came back from World War II and women had been doing everything that men had been doing, there was a push to create a norm, this mythical norm.
A heightened sense at that point. But I want to draw the conversation back to Susan for a minute.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. Yeah, and you said it. Critical race theory is nothing more than an analytical tool that a lot of us pointy heads use all the time. But it is not necessarily some model that a high school English teacher says, I'm going to teach Delgado and do, 57 articles on critical race theory this year. I mean, that's not how it works.
See, that's what it sounded like to me.
So here's what they're afraid of. Now I'm going to ask you this, Susan. How much liberty do you have as a public school English teacher to teach the 1619 Project, to teach Frederick Douglass, to teach Madam C.J. Walker, to teach Du Bois, to teach not I Have a Dream Martin Luther King, not teaching that Martin Luther King, but teaching the, white people have benefited from the Homestead Act, and that was the federal government helping white people to get their boots, but we never got a pair.
Right. And
see,
the thing that's happening here, I mean, you're exactly right. And when I say that this is something that's been weaponized, it totally is, because critical race theory is not a conversation that's had in public education, K through 12 environments. And they have totally changed the framing of this argument to make it into something that we can target specific language. And really, in my state, in Kentucky, we have two pre-filed bills that are CRT bills. The legislators refer to them as CRT bills, although none of the bill language doesn't say CRT at all, or doesn't talk about critical race theory. They're really poorly written bills, number one. But number two, they're bad. But the part with that is they are using it here in this state to change the conversation and take local control away. Because in Kentucky, we have site-based decision-making councils at each school, and the curriculum, the power to design curriculum lies at the school level, and the council is made up of teachers, of parents, and the principal. So at each individual school, we decide curriculums. And so what they're using this as a form now is to attempt to take the power away from those councils so that they at a state level can then distribute curriculum, which is something that we are super against, because right now I have freedom to teach a lot of that in my classroom, and I do. But if they pull this, it's going to turn into us having formulated,
Did you say the word?
What is this? Yes.
Right. Well, and what you wind up, because other Iowa, Idaho, couple other states have already passed bills.
Texas passed theirs.
And what it means is, it's not that this is what's so hilarious about this whole thing. Most people, quick story. I'm teaching U.S. History Survey at my new job at Elgin Community College. Love ECC. Might get fired after this, but anyway, love ECC. I get an email from a student. You're teaching U.S. History Survey. How much of that is going to be U.S. history, and how much is going to be critical race theory?
Oh God.
And therein lies the fear tactic, right? And because that's what this is about. This is connected to the larger white nihilism that, we're losing our status as a majority. And this is another thing that is going to promote white guilt and blah, 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 and all of this.
That's the one I keep hearing. I don't want my child to be made to feel guilty.
It's just baloney, right? They're white. And so I write back to the student and I said, well, you need to define to me what you mean by critical race theory. I teach American history. Now, there's going to be some American history I teach that might piss you off. That doesn't mean it's not American history. To you, it might mean something else. But I want to teach all.
Yeah.
Or as much as I can. I'm teaching this course right now on, it's really interesting. 2 courses. One of them is U.S. history since 1865. Well, where do you start? Reconstruction. Well,
Jesus,
okay, so
fuck.
If the black man isn't the center of the Civil War and Reconstruction, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
But if you listen to the critical race theory is bad, people, you have to just say, the 10% plan and Lincoln was a great guy and, the Union prevailed.
Yeah.
But the truth is, all critical race theory does is what most other of these, and I don't mean this pejoratively, postmodern analytics have done, which is to say, here's the dominant narrative. The dominant narrative has holes. The dominant narrative has silence, and I want to give voice to the silence. Now, if you have a problem with that, then I think the problem is your ego, not history.
I mean,
right?
Before we go, I want to get to the next question. But before I do that, I wanted to bring up Mary's comment.
Oh, there's another question?
I didn't learn about, there is. I didn't learn about Frederick Douglass until junior year of undergrad. And that was one of the things I seem to see is that when they keep mentioning about theory, a lot of it was taught in college. And there's this whole thing of, well, kids just can't understand. They're not capable of blah, blah. So this is leading up to my next question, which I'm going to go ahead and bring up a post that I saw on Facebook. It's a Navy veteran and a photographer, J.J. Westgate. He posted critical theory lesson number 1. Your parents identify with one of these 2 groups and have handed down their values. Take all the time you need with this. So I actually commented today on a post where somebody brought up that kids are not capable, if they're really young, really understanding what this means, because we're still not understanding what it means, right? And my response was, all three of my kids were called the N-word in elementary school. So when I stress that it is important that K through 12 learns critical race theory, I am stressing it is important, because if a child is learning from a parent or anybody else how to use that word, and they might not know really what it is, I think they're capable of learning that, yes, our skin color is different. And guess what? Yeah. Because of that, this is the history of our country. They are capable of learning that. I think we don't put a lot of stock in our kids' thought process. But my next question would be, why is it important? Why is it so important to teach in schools?
Well, hold on. Let me say this. This might deviate a little bit, but I have to say it. My 8-year-old came in the other day and said that one of her friends at school told her that she was bisexual, and then she said, she was like, but then pansexual, Mom, what's that? And I was like, well, I don't know. Let's look it up. And I was like, so we went and started looking at stuff, and we started talking about what things were. And then it led to genders. And she's like, well, what are genders? And so then we had this conversation about what genders are. And then she was like, I really like the pan flag. I think it's really pretty. And what it turned into is they were looking at rainbow themed flags. And so that's where it originated. But the point is that that's a conversation I had with my 8-year-old. You can have difficult conversations that you don't know the answers to with everything, and still do that.
Exactly. I think people expect that you're going to take a college course and teach it to an 8-year-old, and I'm just like, no. I think teachers are capable of creating, a discussion for the age range that they're doing it for.
And what we're hearing a lot is I've sat through several different legislative meetings, like our interim joint committee meetings and stuff that are happening right now regarding these bills. And they keep bringing up these like random incidences where these horrible, where teachers made white kids get on one side of the room and black kids on the other side of the room. Like if there are things where we're doing stuff as individual teachers that are inappropriate, that's one situation. And sometimes that stuff happens. But as a whole, that's not what's happening. We're having difficult conversations in environments that we've created with our students where they feel comfortable to have conversations about this, and they can handle it. And they can handle it because you're teaching them how to critically think. So I use a variety of perspectives, like when we teach, I teach critical theory, like in my advanced classes. So we talk about feminism, like reader response, psychoanalytical theory, like a bunch of different types of lenses in which to read a text. And so that's essentially, when you talk about race issues, it's another lens in which to read a text. So or to experience a historical moment or whatever it may be. These are just lenses that we're looking at. And they are capable of having these conversations, especially in the high schools. But it's important to have these difficult conversations because they can handle it.
I don't think my children were older than 7 or 8 when they were able to look at me in a situation where I wasn't being fair and say, that doesn't seem fair. Like that's all we're doing, is we are informing the conscience of children about how to respond when something is off, is wrong. How the hell are we not doing that with 7 and 8-year-olds?
I found myself watching Bill Maher. I caught an episode on YouTube, and of all people, Ben Shapiro was on there. I don't know how this man still has a show, but essentially it was him and another gentleman having a conversation about CRT, and pretty much Ben Shapiro very clearly stated what CRT is, and the gentleman said, "Thank you very much for describing exactly what it is." But I think it blew up in his face. Essentially, it was this whole sense of, okay, well, if you're going to teach this and we talked about it before, you're teaching white kids to be ashamed of being white, and that they should be ashamed because of the history of this country. And that seems to be the narrative, even with this show that I was listening to, is that, okay, well, obviously that's how people are seeing it. The whole notion of this is that we're just teaching white people to really hate themselves even more.
Right, which speaks to how fragile elites' egos are, right? Because Susan's kids, they're okay. You know, because and Royce, you mentioned this whole issue of fairness. Kids have a very keen sense of that, and you can teach what was fair, what is not fair. Slavery was not fair, what have you. But when we get into this thing, what those who are trying to weaponize, I like that word, weaponize CRT, is what they're trying to say is don't teach about black people, don't teach about gay people, don't teach about women, you teach about white men.
There we
Ah, there we go.
Yeah.
That's history.
Yep.
Right.
And everything else is critical race theory, or it's feminism, or and here's the thing, I don't want to get too lost in the weeds on this, but it's an important thing. A big part of the critique of critical race theory, I saw this meme the other day that was like a little bit of the iceberg, critical race theory, right? And then under the iceberg is a picture of Karl Marx. You know, oh my God! You know, if you teach critical race theory, you're a Marxist. Now here's the truth about the academic scholarship of critical race theory, is that it is full of Marxists, neo-Marxists, post-Marxists, structural functionalists, okay, a wide gamut of people, ethnomusicologists, I mean, all kinds of people that are doing this.
But let's be
stuff.
clear what those people's purpose in using those theories is. It's not to turn us into China or the USSR.
Right, no, not at all.
It is critique.
It's about having a tool of analysis that speaks to the heart, to the core, maybe that's the better word, the core of the structural institutional experience in America, which ultimately rests in exploitation and accumulation.
I'm going to have Royce read some of the comments coming up here.
You know, so if you don't want to talk about that stuff, you don't want to talk about critical race theory. You don't want to talk about 1619 as the founding of America. You don't want to talk about Elijah Lovejoy, right? And what happened to him in Southern Illinois in one of the first free black presses, where there was a riot where white people destroyed his printing press because he was an abolitionist. You don't want to talk about Ida B. Wells. You don't, because if you talk about Ida B. Wells, you've got to talk about lynching. And all of a sudden, if we're talking about lynching, that's critical race. No, that's what happened.
That's history.
If we want to talk, like one of the reasons I'm so proud of this show is by putting vulnerability at the center, it calls out the problem that I think I hear you pointing to, which is that white men, especially, cannot be vulnerable. We cannot be vulnerable to the notion that we may have inherited a fucked up bed and breakfast, right? Like, we cannot be vulnerable to that notion. We can't even be vulnerable to that, even when we see it hurting people that we love. We cannot be vulnerable to the notion that we might have participated in it. So I think there's your comments, by the way.
So let me quickly just say one last thing.
Sorry.
And then I'll be quiet. I promise. I'll let you talk, at least for 30 seconds. But I've been in this running battle. Well, not a battle, a discussion with someone. And it's not necessarily about critical race theory, but it is about the vulnerability aspect. And his whole position is that white supremacy doesn't exist, right? That, Jim Crow may have happened, but, those laws are gone now. So, we had a black president. So, come on, man. You're bringing up these issues because you don't have anything else better to do, so you want to keep dredging up the past.
All right, I just have to fucking...
Hold on, Royce. Hold on.
Yeah,
Royce,
yeah.
hold on. I said to him, no. Well, I used not quite the same metaphor Royce used, but I said, this guy's a housing contractor. I said, okay, so you're telling me that you go to a house, the foundation is shot, the walls are off center, and you say, man, the paint job and the staging is awesome. Let's buy the house. Now, would you buy that house or would you want to get it repaired? I said, but here's what's even worse. What's even worse is you own the house, right? And somebody comes along and says, hey, dude, I know the systems of construction. I understand the institutional way that houses are constructed. And I'm telling you, dude, your house is messed up. And your response is, man, but the paint job is great. Look at the staging. It's awesome. You know what? All of your analysis is just falling on deaf ears. It's not really true.
Yeah.
That's where we're at with this debate.
Yeah.
Okay, Royce, I know you're going to go on a rant, and really you're going to go on it with this next section that we'll be discussing because it was made for you. But before we do that, I want to go back to some of the comments. Mary says, BS, kids are capable of understanding how to learn other perspectives. They need to be taught how to look for further information and understand that their perspective is not the only perspective, which is what I thought this was all about. And we got Nina, who says, if parents are not willing to look at other perspectives or insist on being racist or misogynistic, it is more difficult to get through to the kids. And of course, we saw Kelly's comment of frailty.
There it is.
Fragility, yep. That's what you were bringing up when you were talking about it. So we also got Sarah. What are you doing, Royce?
I'm writing shit down because this is fucking gotta come out.
Right. Well, because the thing is, what is at stake here in this country right now, I fear, is that we are moving further and further away from the ability to just simply have a dialogue.
Yep, and that's
where
the next
people who may not agree can sit down and actually talk and be open-minded, and that's the really unfortunate part of this whole thing, of this whole scenario.
I just like to point out, Kelly said, "Never be quiet, Vincent."
Oh no, I haven't learned that yet. Trust me.
And Mary says, "Thank you."
But I'm going to learn it right now. Susan, go ahead.
Yes,
I'm gonna cut off Royce's rant because I know he's gonna get to it in just a second. But I think that I'm obviously a pretty liberal type person, a Democrat, and I live in a very red state. So this polarizing mentality and this inability to have conversations. If I didn't know how to talk to conservatives or Republicans, I wouldn't have any friends. Right, because that's where I am, right, and I do I'm able to have those conversations, but they're not easy, and I think it goes back to that idea of fragility when we're not teaching how to have difficult conversations, and then when we have legislation that continues to come in and try to dictate what we can. Let me tell y'all, there was in one of these meetings, our commissioner kept talking about equity, and the conversation around equity, and one of their representatives who co-sponsored one of these bills, she said, why are we talking about equity? The Constitution only talks about equality. So why are we saying anything about equity and not equality? And I love our commissioner was like, are we going to get rid of special ed? Special ed, gifted to talent, but this is equity. These people are making these conversations. But then it goes back. I think what we have to look at this when we talk about the weaponizing of what's happening and how this is actually an agenda that was used to change this narrative. It's a backlash, right? So everything sort of happens in a pendulum. And so when George Floyd was murdered, and we had all this conversation, all this unifying mentality around equity and talking about having this real conversation, and people were starting to move in this direction. This is the backlash. This is the opposite side coming back. So this is all expected. You know, like it's expected that this is going to happen.
No, I expect people to not be shitheads.
Yep.
Well,
You're
I know, I'm
expecting
sorry.
way too much.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and lead into our next because we got 10 minutes left. 10 minutes left of this. So it's actually the resistance.
And Susan's points there are dead on too.
Heck yeah. Oh heck yeah. So I found a clip. PBS NewsHour did a discussion about critical race theory, and Prudence Carter, who is a professor of education at UC Berkeley, brought up her reasonings for why there's so much resistance.
Well, I hear people talking about critical race theory. I see that as a straw man for many communities, politicians particularly, trying to shape the knowledge base and what we teach students. I think that there is some fear about raising consciousness about structural inequality, about structural racism, because it does implicate many of our practices in our society. It indicates what we would have to do differently in government. And some of that is ideological in terms of there's a lot of resistance to how we do things to be fairer and more just in our society.
So white people don't like change. That's really what
Also, why the hell were they using Skype? They're PBS. And they're using Skype.
They must have like the premium that doesn't like glitch out and stuff. So I mean, Skype's it's okay. It's all right.
I mean, actually, that video was pretty damn good. Like, I gotta acknowledge, I haven't played Skype in like a decade.
So why the resistance? I mean, that's when, I mean, frankly, I think politically, that's absolutely right. When you hear, I feel like, God, if we could just take the political out of it, because it really shouldn't be. Like I said, it's a common sense human thing. Like, why wouldn't you as a human want to do that? And it sucks.
Yeah. So there's the thing that drives me nuts is we've been lulled into using the term political here. Political, polis, the Latin root is polis. It just simply means the business of the people. Like, that's really all that we're talking about here is stuff that's the public interest, right? This is not like everything is political in a sense because it has to do with us, people. What's happening here is partisanship. Partisanship takes its name from a 10-foot axe from the Middle Ages that was the purpose of this thing, supposedly, it's all bullshit, but whatever. The purpose of this thing was to literally split a human body in two from top to bottom. That is the purpose of the partisan, right? And that's what's happening in this country. It's partisanship. And it stems from our two-party system, which stems from a winner-take-all theory, which stems from rugged individualism and blah, 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 blah. Like, we can trace all this shit back. That's where this comes from. Like,
I guess when I think about it, and you're right about that, I just feel like having a conversation, especially when I hear the whole, I don't want to say argument, but people coming back with, my son has black friends and they don't look at color. They're just, this is my friend. They don't say they're black friend. I'm like, well, wouldn't you think that the black friend would want his white friend to know more about where this, what struggles?
All right, here's the rant.
Is this a whole nother code system going on?
The whole notion of I don't see color is ridiculous.
Another thing going on. But what the professor in the video said that I think is really key for us to deal with over time, and Susan is in the trenches with this, is that the issue is about who controls the curriculum and what is the curriculum about, right? Because if the curriculum is about, I can't think of a better way to teach critical thinking than to say, how do we detangle and analyze all of the different parts of American history? That's where we, right? And employers all say, we want critical thinking. And yet, if we employ the strategy of being critical towards meta narratives, all of a sudden that's socialism. I mean, it's crazy.
Hey, there's a million things there. We got to catch up on what are those? Those are comments. Let's start with Kelly. Kelly made a good point coming back. Political versus partisanship is an important distinction, but the common vernacular is that political means partisan now. That's hard to reclaim. You're exactly right. We're never going to reclaim it. I ain't fighting that battle. Yeah, and Nina, people in charge don't like to lose power. And Sarah's note that white outrage is how we've protected the status quo for generations. I think here's my comment to people who are like, I don't need CRT, I don't believe in color, blah, blah, blah. Go ask 100 black men what it's like to be pulled over. And then ask 100 white men what it's like to be pulled over. And you fucking tell me that it doesn't matter. Period.
Well, I mean,
End
but
of conversation.
slavery ended so long ago. That's the other thing I heard today.
Then why is one group of people predominantly scared for their lives when the cops pull them over?
So I think okay, so I hear what you all are saying, and you're exactly right. But when we talk about like moving and trying to get people to have different perspectives or to see other perspectives, even getting pulled over by a cop, it has become partisan. Right? It has become a divisive issue.
True.
Right? Like everything has. So you have to start with the framing of joining people together. And that's why Black educators matter. That's why we have to that's why education is so important, because if you think about every single kid that's coming up, if every single, in Kentucky, you don't have I have students who haven't had a Black teacher ever, right?
In Kentucky,
in my class, and in my building, I think we have maybe 7 out of 185 teachers in my building.
And how many students are
2,300? Oh, we're about 20% of color, right? So, kids of color would be 20%. So you've got all those kids who have interactions, and even within our at our school, our Black teachers who are with the general population, there's only 1, no, maybe 2, but the rest of them are special ed teachers or in the disability units or, whatever it may be, working with specialized groups. So the kids don't even see it. Yep. Or those kids are connected to, or those teachers are football coaches or baseball coaches or so there's this thing that's happening. So what the problem is that we need more Black educators in every element of my state, for example. We need them all over the place, out in rural Kentucky, out everywhere, so that you're introduced to somebody who doesn't look like you. And that's good for not only the Black kids who are sitting in your class, but for those white kids, because you bond with your teachers, right? Your teachers are like your second family because they are your family. You spend the whole week with them, and it becomes, we get to know them. It's a whole thing. So the problem, though, is that our education system, because of what you talked about at the beginning, and Brown versus the board and all of this stuff, our system comes from a white middle-class centered ideology, right? So it is not comfortable for Black and brown kids, really any of the time through it. And so you don't have a lot of kids who want to go back into the system to teach. Yeah. So we're having a problem. You have to change the system to get more kids back into it in order to heal it. So it's circular and it jets out all the issues. So how do you pull that together? That's the big thing. That's the problem.
To be blunt, right in your school, what I heard was 3.5% of the teachers are Black. And we're just isolating one possible demographic here. We're not talking about, in my area, we'd be having this conversation about a Hispanic or Latino or Spanish speaking folks. But let's just stick with this one little group demographic. 3.5% of the teachers would identify as Black, and you got 20% of the kids. What would happen if we just fucking at least lined that up? What would that be like? I've never had a Black teacher.
That's what
but I've had
one in my complete history. I've had one Black teacher.
I've had a lot of folks teach me, but I've never they've never been up in front of the classroom.
I had
where
0.
I needed them.
Yeah.
Yep.
I had 0, and I have been the first for many, and I'm teaching at the college level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you
and
know,
that
who have
that's
not had a black professor. And I agree with you wholeheartedly, Susan. Getting more African Americans and Latinos
mhm.
into the teaching professions is critical. But then you also have to decolonize the curriculum,
Yes.
Oh
and
boy.
this is where the real work is.
Like that's one of
How
those
do we
words you're not allowed to say.
decolonize the curriculum? And that's maybe another show
Yep. I really wanted to end it
or
on like,
two.
how do we make this happen? But I feel like we're not sure how that's going to happen. We're still trying to get people to understand the meaning.
Right.
To
Well, you
even
can't
figure out.
you can't decolonize the curriculum if we're not even willing as a society to recognize these different perspectives and realities that happen. And I'll just say this, I'll shut up. Michael Trujillo wrote a great book that I highly recommend to everybody watching today, which is called Silencing the Past: Power and the Production of History. And his whole argument in that book is that the way history is constructed, the way these narratives are constructed about American history, right? The Pilgrims came over and they had religious persecution and they settled, and oh, they had all this fun with the Native Americans and they shared some corn together and it was Thanksgiving. And then, the West was just open and there was nobody there and slavery wasn't really that bad, and on and on and on, right?
What was this book called?
All of that is rooted in a premise about history that is rooted in power. And this is the book is called Silencing the Past: Power and the Production of History. And Trujillo gives a very important definition of history we need to keep in mind in this discussion. He says this: history is what happened and what we say happened. And the critical issue is who gets to say
it.
what happened.
Yep, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
That book is on its way.
I love that you immediately look to your shelf to see if you have it.
Well, that's okay. In my head, I was spelling it Trujillo because, of course, I'm in New Mexico.
So we have some
spelling. Yeah,
it's French, but anyway.
Before we close out, we got some more comments. Wow, we got a lot of comments. What is this from Sarah? Okay, but do employers really want critical thinking?
I mean, if we actually taught people to critically think, no one would work for corporations, and we'd fucking kill the things finally.
Maybe there's a limit to it.
And then we have Mary HR here. Employers definitely say they want critical thinking, but you are correct that people are not taught how to accept the power loss of critical thinking.
Yeah. Susan's right on. Yeah. Segregation and representation are a big part of the problem. Folks don't trust others' perspectives because they don't have friends who are different from them. I got to jump off of that one for a second. Like recognizing last summer as I went through my whole Facebook friends feed, that the number of people of color in my friends circle on Facebook was indicative of how white my life had been. I can literally walk through my entire life and never have to be in a space that is not white male friendly. Can anyone else on our screen today say that? Can you, that right there. And why would we not want other people to walk through spaces where they are held and where they are loved? Right. Why on earth would we not want that for our fellow humans? I've yet to have a black educator. Black educators would be life-changing. It starts in the classroom.
Shayla is one of my students, my daughter student person.
One of those badasses in training. I should have known.
And with Kelly, black educators would be awesome guests on a future show. I'm just saying, we have one.
Yep.
We have one.
Yep. Well, and we got another. I gotta check. Okay, but to cycle back to that, to the question, it starts. Okay, so this is one of your students that threw up this comment. I have yet to have a black educator. Black educators would be life-changing, right?
Yes.
But you don't sit here and freak out as though she is bad-mouthing you because she said that.
No, not yeah. No, right? No. And
this is what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Instead, and I know enough about you to guess your heart probably hurts that she has to say that.
Yeah.
Because you love these little people that you get to work with.
Yes.
So anyway, I just
See, that's the thing too. Like I always, I don't know, I try to bring in people into my classroom who don't look like me, who come from different backgrounds, who have different perspectives. And Shayla actually benefited from that connection with one of those, one of our friends who came in and did that. And it's actually like changed her whole life and her course of direction. But it was a Black male who was able to come in and build that connection with her. And now she's going to be like the next freaking, oh my God, AOC. She's going to be like the next AOC out there, like doing, she's political science, and she teeters on political science or education, and I could pull her either way, but she's
I would like to bring up this quote from Sarah, who mentioned that she had a ton, but I was at a fancy prep school.
Yep. Yeah.
That's something.
I hear they pay better.
Instead, fancy prep schools gave teachers freedom to decolonize the curriculum.
Yeah.
Yep. You don't see that happen in APS.
No, and actually, bluntly, not at most private schools either. Private schools are like that bastion of white supremacy for the most part, are a bastion of white supremacy within
certainly
within
at the
our
high
structure.
school level for sure.
Yeah. Yep.
So we also have from Nina, silencing the vast power in the production industry.
Because I'm sitting here, wait, I can't type that fast, Vincent.
I know. Mary says, love you guys. Thank you for the various perspectives and more learning. That's what we're here
Great.
for. That's
Well,
what
let me throw Mary one thing on this whole issue of silencing the past, and this is off of critical race theory, so just be cool. The most silenced actor, but it's existential in its scope. The most silenced actor.
Oh no, we can't do this.
Oh
now.
no.
Interwebs.
Oh gosh, oh no, it's gonna go off. This is like what those movies that they were like, now this is what you want to do.
All right, well, let's continue with comments. Oh,
Yeah.
did we catch him?
Did he move?
No, he's
Okay, let's get through these
All right.
comments really quick. Kelly, so glad y'all are back. Thanks for this show. Bring back Dr. You know what? This is like his fourth appearance.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
are we
So
back?
yeah.
Oh, there he's back. He's back.
There he is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so do I have to repeat what I just said?
Yep.
Yeah.
you were right here. Go from here.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Okay, cool. Yeah, I was saying that in this issue of silencing the past, and it's not critical race theory, but CRT is related to this at a very powerful way when we think about it. The most silenced actor is the earth itself.
Oh, damn.
Right? We've silenced the earth. And when you think about white supremacy, the history of white supremacy, the exploitation of capitalism, they are linked together. I mean, those, if we could free ourselves from racism, we'd probably free ourselves from killing the human species.
Yeah. Nailed it.
Yep.
Just a light topic to end the show on. So,
Yeah. Light.
some
And we
light
got from
and
Kelly.
fruity.
But it's so
Shayla
good,
on the show. So yeah, there's
Yeah.
that.
Thank you for nailing that, though, because we have a tendency to silo in these conversations. And as soon as you said it, I'm like, yep. And here I am, like totally, I'm on my second floor, right? When was the last time I put my bare feet in good earth? Right? We do, when we talk about silencing the earth, we literally don't have to ever connect with it. Right? Like, so that's yeah,
And
I don't want to run that one
it
over.
is the ultimate target of exploitation, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yep.
I mean,
Always
right?
is.
And it doesn't talk back.
Yep.
Well, it is now.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
We're talking.
So I'm gonna go through. I'm gonna get through these. I knew this would go over because I knew this topic would do that. But Shayla would love to be on the show. Just
You
so
gotta get her
everybody knows.
on. She'd be great. We'll make that work.
Oh my gosh, Mary was like, no. Yeah, we feel the same way, Mary. We feel the
know.
same way.
Dr. Gaddis is he has one bite here and there.
My fancy prep school wasn't Christian. Why?
There we go. I'm
be,
back. I'm in
could
it.
be
I guess
why
it's
it was
me.
more
I'm in
difficult.
and out. So
It's
Yeah.
okay. We gotcha.
It's okay. It's okay. Okay, we gotta wrap this up. But thank you everybody for coming on. I'm really glad we got to do this topic, and I think this is what needs to happen in order for people to really understand what critical race theory is. They hear the word race and they freak the fuck out. So I think if people just take a moment and think, maybe I should listen and find out. Like I said, I mean, I had it with my friend Joe's father, and he was convinced that he thought it was about teaching white kids not to like themselves. And when I started talking to him, it changed. He actually started looking up articles and reading on things. So I guess baby steps, but I don't want it to be for long, because I honestly can say, Royce, while you were one that looked at your Facebook feed and there wasn't a whole lot of black faces, I didn't have a lot of I didn't have a lot of black faces on mine. And even as Dr. Gaddis is talking about some of these names that I'm sure I should be very proud of, I don't know who they are. Because this is stuff that was not, most of the stuff I've been learning has been out of school, and I don't want that for my kids. I don't want my kids to, yes, keep learning as you get out of school, but there should be no reason that their Black history, which they get a whole month of, is Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and Rosa Parks.
Maybe
There
it's not
are
even
other.
half my kids don't know who Malcolm X is. Over half.
Well, he was the bad guy. So, yeah. I mean, look at what Martin Luther King, when they bring him up, he's the good. He's all good. And look at, nonviolence.
Until you make him read Trumpet of Conscience, and then he's a bad guy.
See, I was
Exactly.
by the end of their lives, they had crossed in this beautiful way.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway.
So I'm
show.
glad we got to do this. I'm really glad we got to do this. So Royce, you wanna say something before we head out?
No, I've ranted enough. Okay.
I got
need to
so
say
many
this.
snippets.
I got to say thank you to Dr. Gaddis, and thank you to Susan for being willing to come on and engage in this one. And thank you for the work that y'all are doing in the world.
Yes.
I often wonder what it would have been like, what my life would have been like if I'd have had either of you for a teacher. And I had some good teachers, but the work that y'all are doing is so fundamentally different. And I wonder how much sooner I could have gotten out of who I was, because that was shitty, and it was a long time of shit. So thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for doing this.
Oh, thank you for coming back, and we're happy to be back. Thank you everybody for tuning in to Where's Your Heart. We'll be back next week, the brand new episode. Say goodnight, Royce.
Good night, Royce.
Good night.
We'll see you guys next week. Good
Thank
night.
you very much. Susan, thank you. Great to meet you.
Great to meet you too.
Good to see you again.